Hey, my fellow athletes and aging athletes. I wanted to do a little mini dive into overtraining for athletes as I'm trying to do little rabbit hole podcasts on how you can be fit and healthy as you age from the inside out. So, we are diving today into overtraining syndrome, signs of OTS in athletes. You might I've heard of some of these related to overtraining. So let's go through some of these things on the list here on this article of the role of nutrition in optimizing athletic performance on Rupa Health, where I order my functional labs for clients. So, athletes, we train to improve performance, right? We want to be more fit. We want to get faster. We want to just improve overall fitness levels for specific events, races, but hopefully improving the aging process. But as I always talk about, more is not better. Sometimes you need to dial it down a bit, maybe pay attention to those red flags and measure your heart rate variability, ideally with a heart rate strap, not just your Garmin or Whoop band. So we want to look at some of the signs of overtraining syndrome, overtraining under recovery, some signs and symptoms: depressed mood, fatigue, hormonal changes, poor recovery time, loss of motivation, bradycardia or tachycardia, insomnia, irritability, heavy, sore, stiff muscles, anxiety, brain fog, weight loss or muscle loss, not so good, amenorrhea in women, and decreased physical performance in the sport. So, possible causes of overtraining syndrome for athletes. Here are some items in this article on Rupa Health. Dehydration. Simple one. Often we don't drink enough. We have too much caffeinated beverages as coffee, especially when we got this new coffee espresso machine. I just push a button and grinds my beans and pours me a spot of espresso. It makes it too easy to have too much coffee, I must tell you. But I make sure that I'm drinking water and I'm drinking my green tea, which can also dehydrate me. So I put element in my water, and I get the unsweetened because I'm not a fan of stevia, as you know, and use that in my water throughout the day. I use Redmond's real salt on my food and even in my coffee. So I add a lot of minerals into my water to try to stay hydrated. So remember, when you are exercising, not just to drink a plain water, hopefully it's filtered water, and you're not sweating out water, you sweat out minerals. So we need to replace those minerals that are lost. So that's why we often need a little bit more electrolytes and skipping the sugar and all the junk that's in a lot of those hydration drinks. So this says adequate hydration plays an important role in athletic performance, recovery, overall injury prevention, and more. So you can look at hydration, uh, going into functional nutrition, how you can do things with nutritional therapy. Now, this is an area I'm talking a lot about lately: excessive inflammation and oxidative stress. So, overtraining under recovery and not eating the nutrient dense whole foods diet, not having proper digestion. Maybe you're having too much stress overall in life, and a lot of hidden sources of internal stress that we call hidden, stands for hormone imbalances, immune dysfunction, digestion, detoxification system imbalances, and energy and neurotransmitters. So we want to look at all this data together. What's going on? Why am I not recovering and repairing from workouts? So it might be overtraining, but you might also have some hidden sources of chronic inflammation, oxidative stress. And we're going to dive into the oxidative stress in a separate podcast in antioxidants. Now, how you repair from your workouts. That's why we want to optimize sleep, hygiene routine, and what we're doing in that recovery period of time, how we want to nutrient time to get our protein in, and how we need to properly digest our protein or just digest our foods in general and have a healthy gut. But excessive buildup can lead to muscle fatigue, soreness, inhibited performance, excessive buildup of oxidative stress. Too much of anything leads to metabolic chaos. So we want to be aware of chronic inflammation, something that we're doing every day, too much of, starts to accumulate, and that will impact your performance. So, and it says studies of overtrained, underperforming athletes show higher resting rates of oxidative stress markers. Alterations to the HPA or HPG axis. Hormonal changes have been done, or studies been done on various endurance athletes, indicating in the HPA axis or the HPG axis may be altered in cases of overtraining. Compared to healthy athletes, athletes with OTS symptoms have less sensitive HPA axis response to stress from training, leading to earlier fatigue, poor glucose regulation during performance. So understanding athletes' hormone levels can be an important part of piece of designing a nutrition recovery plan to optimize performance. And then we've talked a lot lately, or I'm trying to talk more about the gut health of the athlete. So alterations to the gut microbiome. This says in endurance athletes, the gut microbiome may play an important role in regulating oxidative stress and inflammatory response to training, as well as playing an integral role of ensuring adequate nutrient digestion and absorption to meet the athlete's dietary needs. Ongoing stress can change the composition of the gut microbiome, leading to changes in mood, metabolism, and inflammation that may impact the athlete's performance. A really important part. Now, we can dive into each of these for a 30-minute episode easily. Next one on the list is central fatigue. Athletes experiencing overtraining syndrome often exhibit symptoms such as changed mood, sleep, and behavior. Serotonin, neurotransmitter, plays a role in all three of these areas. So examining our serotonin metabolism that of its precursors can be helpful in identifying biochemical factors contributing to overtraining syndrome. Levels of serotonin precursors have been found to be altered with excessive exercise as well. So you can go in and click on the article into this one, say symptoms, and it'll lead you to articles as what is overtraining syndrome and the context of fatigue and underperformance common in athletes, understanding overtraining syndrome, and that's where a lot of this information is coming from. So going back, micronutrient deficiencies. Vitamins and minerals are essential for athletic performance and recovery, as these are essential for basic metabolic functions and hormone production to help with recovery and repair. In particular, zinc, magnesium, iron, and B vitamins are all important for athletes to track. Without adequate micronutrient intake to meet the demands of training, athletes may be at risk for poor recovery and higher inflammation that can lead to underperformance if left unchecked. So understanding levels of these micronutrients can help fine-tuning recovery needs and guide supplementation during training periods for you. Now, you can do a micronutrient test, but that doesn't, to me, tell us a lot. Here's an article on the role of mineral and trace element supplementation. You can review the article there, download it, but I would want to also look at your microbiome and anti-nutrients that will bind the zinc and magnesium. So looking at your phytates, oxalates, lectins. We want to look at your stomach organ, or if you have signs and symptoms of low stomach acid, low HCl. And if there's H. pylori, which we can tell in a GI stool test. So that's why we never just do one lab test, because you end up having to get another one. So it's better to do all of them at once and correlate the data together, look at patterns, and we put those clues all together to put the missing pieces of puzzle together. Now, functional nutrition labs to help improve athletic performance is what I was just talking about. Functional labs to help identify nutrient deficiencies, electrolyte imbalances, inflammatory markers, and biomarkers indicative of your need for personalized nutrition. This is a metabolic panel. Oxidative stress and inflammation, omega-3 index is a good one to get. Omega-3 fat levels are important to keep inflammation from high training load at bay. So we've talked about that. I've talked about Kion, omega fatty acids. I've been using that morning and night and have it with food. Sometimes helps better, but having 3 to 5 grams is often suggested. But you can look at these markers, what Rupa Health uses. We do oxidative stress. There's a urine test. There's different markers that we'll look at, but that's interpreting oxidative stress. We can tell from some lab testing. Okay, and neurotransmitter testing is another organic acids test we can look at, comprehensive hormones. So we want to look at not all these, because unless you want to spend a lot of money, we have to pick and choose what are your priorities. Micronutrient panel, as we said, zinc, magnesium, and the B vitamins, important to track, but also I want to know why. If they are low, what is causing them to be low? So I'm not a big fan of taking all these supplements that you hear about. I want to know root cause medicine. Let's investigate what is missing imbalance wise, or what's out of balance, dysfunction, to cause you to be low in these nutrients, because there's a pattern we want to look for. What else is going on? So that's why I think a comprehensive gut microbiome test is really essential part of doing a lab test investigation. So this is functional nutrition approach to improving athletic performing, using data from lab testing to figure out what is best. And even the blood chemistry panel you can get from your doctor, we can tell a little bit of what deficiencies you have as B vitamins in some of those markers. So we also want to look at iron levels, for sure, ferritin, your vitamin D levels, and protein intake. We can tell some markers there. If you have low protein intake and malabsorption, we can see that from a blood chemistry test. So as this article says, protein intake, perhaps most important consideration for athletes. This macronutrient is essential for muscle repair and recovery and training adaptation, maintaining muscle mass, favorable body composition, inadequate protein intake, which a lot of us struggle with, getting enough protein in with the right essential amino acids. Remember that leucine threshold theory needs to be 3 grams of leucine within the essential amino profile, that we need all of them together. And the essential amino leucine needs to be around 3 grams, according to Dr. Lehman's threshold theory. Now, inadequate protein is a challenge, but that's going to be really important as an athlete. That's why we've talked a lot on this show about not doing OMAD. I'm guilty. A lot of us are guilty that we're doing too much fasting and doing 1 or 2 meals a day. But when you're exercising 1 or 2 times a day, it's really hard, nearly impossible, unless you're going to eat all those protein via essential amino acids, taking capsules and drinks. But to get enough protein, doing 1 meal a day doesn't really work for athletes if we want to avoid muscle loss and help recovery and repair. So eating more, if you don't want to eat more, again, Body Health or Kion, you can get their essential amino acids, although to get 10 grams of amino acids or 10 grams of protein, you need to take a lot. Take, say, 5 grams of protein is that 7 capsules for Kion, and then 5 tablets from the Body Health. So I have it written down, and it's been in previous podcasts. You can go over the essential amino acid intake, but it's a lot of pills. If you want to not eat a meal, 30, 50 grams of protein, you have to take a ton of capsules or the tablets that people don't really like. So athletes do require higher amounts of protein than the general population. Some studies suggest up to 2 grams per kilogram per body weight for support optimal performance. We go by 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per ideal pound of body weight. Adequate intake of amino acids, we're just discussing the building blocks of protein. This is also essential for neurotransmitter production. So too little protein in your daily intake may lead to alteration in mood, sleep, and behavior. And I am doing another podcast with Body Health on essential amino acids and how it helps to take the essential aminos before bed, because you don't want to eat 3 hours before bed, right? Because that will impact our sleep quality, because we'll be digesting and not detoxifying if we eat too close to bed. What happens when we're going to bed? We want that recovery repair while we're sleeping. And we need amino acids to help us with that. So taking some aminos before bed is very beneficial. And that's what we'll do in a coming podcast with Body Health. Now, optimal carb intake we've talked about, nutrient timing, and that's another podcast, Stephanie Holbrook and I are going to go into nutrient timing or carb timing. A longer workout day might require more carbohydrates on a day that's a recovery day. So, too low of carb intake can lead to deficits in muscle strength, power, endurance, early fatigue, fluctuations in blood labs of cortisol and thyroid. And that's why I said in a previous podcast that I personally was doing too much fat for my body. And I know my genetics, I can't do so much saturated fat. I have to keep that down a little bit lower. But I, as a previously focused top age group triathlete, doing Ironmans and marathons and trying to win my age group, I, at that time, was eating too little calories and too little carbohydrates when I'm doing a harder workout. So that showed up in the past years after my adrenal exhaustion. I kind of had a relapse because I was doing all this fasting and not eating enough protein and carbohydrates from real food, not crap. And I have low thyroid, T3. So really want to individualize all this. It gets confusing, but we want to personalize it and men versus women. So getting enough fat, healthy fats, this article's talking about, especially the dietary fat on inflammation, hormone production. They talk about moderate fat intake led to more ideal testosterone levels. Emphasis on omega-3 fats help reduce inflammation, as I was speaking about, the omega-3 fatty acids, and testing that index, making sure you have enough. For those athletes who need to cut body fat percentage quite low, supplementing with omega-3s and, as I said, the essential amino acids, I think is beneficial. Supplements that help in herbs help with athletic performance. There's more articles on that. Getting the blood testing, seeing what you might need that you can't get enough of through your food. So antioxidants we'll talk about. And then my new discovery with my new friends of liver deliverance or deliverance. It's called a liver antioxidant, but it's high dose of antioxidant supplements. But you can get vitamin C, vitamin E. We want to look at glutathione. Certain activities are going to wear out more. Genetic SNPs too, you might need more. Also looking at the electrolytes, if it's keto chow minerals, LMNT, Redmond's real salt, Reelite, lots of options, omega-3, supplemental protein. We're going to look at that. So anyways, I'll put this link in the show notes. To order functional lab testing, you have to go through a practitioner, but you can read on Rupa Health. And then I want to dive into some other articles. These ones we touched on, the role of minerals, then overtraining, athletes trained to increase performance, performance increases are achieved through increased training loads. Increased loads are tolerated only through periods of rest and recovery, which we call training periodization. So if you're not having a deload week, you may be doing what's called overreaching. Overreaching is considered an accumulation of training load that leads to performance decrements requiring days to weeks for recovery. Overreaching followed by appropriate rest can ultimately lead to performance increases. However, overreaching is extreme and combined with additional stressors, as life overtraining syndrome may result. This is kind of what my book was all about. Life is not a race, it is a journey. Too much of anything might be a good thing, but it's that Goldilocks effect. Too little, too much, it's that right amount. And if you already have busy lifestyle, a lot of you are training top of a full-time job, family duties, other activities, you've got a lot going on. And this is what happened to me 10, 12 years ago now, 2013, 11 years, that I was not recovering and probably had red flags for years. So overreaching is considered accumulation of training load that leads to performance decrements requiring days to recovery. So overreaching followed by appropriate rest can lead to performance increases. But saying this again, if overreaching is extreme and combined with additional sources of stressors, and I'll add in the word chronic stressors, external and hidden internal stressors, that will lead potentially to overtraining syndrome, or what I call metabolic chaos. As an FDN practitioner, we kind of put all together. So overtraining syndrome may be caused by systemic inflammation, efforts on the central nervous system, including depressed mood, central fatigue, and results of neurohormonal changes. So you can read that science paper if you want, functional overreaching. This is the terminology, non-functional overtraining syndrome. They go into all that. So I would look into this. I'll put this link in the show notes, common hypothesis of overtraining syndrome and glycogen hypothesis, central fatigue hypothesis, glutamine hypothesis. Yeah, so interesting. So then I was looking at some other articles. You can find more on Rupa Health, and then strategies to optimize gut health. So another article to dive into, common related issues in athletes, right? So we've been talking about gut health, leaky gut. Why is this an issue? Gut related issues in athletes. So another article you can read, 30 to 70% of athletes experience some sort of GI stress issues during their training and racing, probably. Most common affected sports, running, cycling, and weightlifting. Gut health, central component of optimal health, that optimal athletic performance, as the gut plays a role in energy metabolism, nutrient absorption, and immune function. The gut microbiome has important relationships with stress and hormone production. So looking at a functional medicine approach is what we do, more of a holistic lens. That functional medicine practitioners view health in the body, and we look at the whole picture. So we help athletes reveal underlying causes of gut-related symptoms and adjust nutrition, lifestyle, and training accordingly to help feel your best and perform your best in life. That's funny. That's what I would say. So the importance of gut health in athletes. Let's touch on this for a moment. Gut health. It can impact your athletic performance several ways. How is that? Gut-related symptoms is bloating, reflux. It's kind of obvious ones. I don't have that. I've had that in the beginning when I did Ironmans, when I used to try to do all the nutrition guidance that we were told in the past, and I'd be throwing up the entire workout, which is why I switched to more of a low-carb approach and metabolic efficiency and being more fat adapted. So the health of the gut impacts things like nutrient absorption, energy production, metabolism, and immune function, as our immune system, 70-80% in our gut. So athletes, we have the ability to produce sustained energy, and this is at how we train, zone 2, and doing our sprints and doing all that we've been talking about. But we also want to look at what we're eating, nutrient-dense foods, but how well can you break those foods down? How well do you absorb nutrients from that food and turn it into usable energy? So all these digestive processes require the gut to be functioning at optimal level. And the microbiome modulates inflammation and the immune response. And they have studies listed. You can click on the article, find that the poor microbiome health or gut microbiome health may be linked to breakdown of musculoskeletal tissue integrity. Gut-related symptoms often increase with difficulty and intense training sessions. Fluid restriction, dehydration can also worsen these symptoms. Endurance athletes face higher incidence of GI disorders, increased of intestinal permeability that we've been discussing, we call leaky gut, may be associated with a higher rate of sport injuries. It's been found greater than 60 minutes of vigorous intensity endurance training, about 70% of your max work capacity, so say your zone 2, can lead to changes in the body, characteristics of in the gut, leaky gut syndrome. To the athlete, symptoms may appear such as bloating, diarrhea, reflux, or heartburn, or abdominal pain. But as you might listen to Dr. Tom O'Brien's podcast and the one I just did with Dr. Vincent Pedre and then with Dr. William Davis, you might not have any symptoms of bloating, diarrhea, constipation. Might not be going on. You might not have heartburn or abdominal pain, but you can have all sorts of different symptoms of gut dysfunction because of leaky gut. So you have to look at systemic gut inflammation. But as the article we went over, Dr. Fasano, all chronic inflammation probably starts with a leaky gut. So what do you do about it? Let's look at how you're training, how your recovery is, tracking your heart rate variability, looking at your foods you're eating and tracking that. So I give people a food and mood log, nutritional therapy intake forms, see what they're doing now. So I would look at all this information in here, what to do about it, functional lab testings, nutritional strategies, Mediterranean diet, getting the olive oil, getting good local fats from what do you have in season for your fruits, your fats from avocado, getting the natural fat from grass-fed meats and seafood, wild caught, don't get the farm raised gross stuff, but looking at more of a low carb Mediterranean approach, get the healthy fats, getting your protein, fermented foods. Each meal, we talk about getting that protein, fermented food to improve exercise performance and microbiome health. We want to increase production of butyrate. This butyrate producing bacteria and other beneficial strains is Akkermansia, helps our mucosal barrier. So I've been geeking out the microbiome and really looking into short chain fatty acids and all this information, but I will let you read this if you want to know more, the role of hydration in gut health and performance, and then integrating lifestyle modifications as I talk about the holistic method. Stress can affect gut motility and blood flow in the gut, increase leaky gut, affect digest enzyme production, impact stress from the inside out. Symptoms of GI distress will continue, metabolic chaos if not addressed. So you want to pay attention to these red flags, catch things before they get worse. It's a domino effect. So working on your gut health and microbiome through nutrition, supplementation, lifestyle changes to improve your stress response, helping be at your peak level, but functioning your best in sport, but more importantly, daily life. Working on your current self to be your best version of your future self. So work with a practitioner to help identify these stressors. We work together to create a personalized program and manage it. I use Practice Better and Training Peaks with my clients. Sometimes people like Chronometer, track all their data. Sleep, another podcast to do. Sleep is essential for optimal performance. If you're not getting sleep, you're probably not recovering. So tracking your sleep on your devices is great, but paying attention. What are you doing to improve it? How do you get that 20, 30% deep sleep and REM sleep? What is your heart rate variability? So interesting, sleep deficits in athletes have been linked to slower reaction time and accuracy, poor endurance, and suboptimal strength. Overtraining and not prioritizing recovery can hurt sleep quality as well, compounding these issues in athletes who are not prioritizing sleep hygiene and are training hard. The diversity of the gut microbiome has been associated with sleep quality, and it's known that gut microbes can produce neurotransmitters related to sleep and circadian rhythm regulation. By prioritizing sleep hygiene and taking additional measures to optimize gut health, athletes can ensure that they're getting quality sleep and recovery time that will improve their performance in sports and hopefully life. So you can, again, click on these words, diversity, see what that leads to, right? The gut microbiome diversity associated with sleep. We can look at these other ones, neurotransmitters. How's that related to sleep? What is the relationship in gut health and sleep? So there's so many rabbit holes to go down, it's ridiculous. And really summarizing these studies to make it quick, look at the abstract. It's a relationship between sleep disorders and gut dysbiosis. What affects what? Another good one to read. So clicking on all these, you get kind of sucked in. You can just waste time and not get back to work. So the science of sleep, functional medicine for restorative sleep, another good one to go into. So hopefully that gives you some ideas of what we're looking at to be your best self. And paying attention to your stressors. So you're looking at how you can improve sleep, how you can improve your gut health, gut related. So, summary from this: gut related issues in athletes. Takeaway: functional medicine approach optimizing gut health in athletes can help ensure athletes not only meet their nutrient requirements, but also address the underlying causes of any GI discomfort that may be experiencing that is negatively impacting your performance. Not just, don't think you have to be an athlete, performance in life. It's it impacting your day to day activities. You're not able to thrive. That is a red flag. You need to pay attention to what's going on from the inside out. Considering digestive capacity, digestive enzymes, how you're breaking your food down, stomach acidity, your gut microbiome diversity. Listen to my episode on the super gut and the super gut yogurt. Personalized nutrition, really using a continuous glucose monitor, tracking your heart rate variability, your heart rate, noticing changes. So it's more of a holistic approach to gut health, functional medicine, lab testing, help us create personalized plans. They're more suggestions, guidelines, but it's you being the expert of yourself. It's not the coach practitioner telling you what to do. It's you figuring out what you need to do to be your best self. For we're guiding you down that path. Course correction, let's step out. Let's work on finding what works best for you. So the ability to break down, the ability to absorb and utilize your nutrition is an understated essential for athletes looking to perform at their peak. And the health of the gut is responsible for these abilities. So important. It's really something, hopefully you can implement some of this into your life. If it's picking one thing you learned today, taking digestive enzymes, getting enough essential fatty acids, essential amino acids, creating a sleep hygiene routine. How do you start your day and how do you end your day? How are you monitoring if you're overtraining? So go back to the original conversation of overtraining, overreaching, right? What are you doing to take care of yourself so you're not having this overtraining issues? You're not having chronic inflammation. So we'll go into this more next time. Oxidative stress, mitochondria dysfunction, looking at this, chronic fatigue, cardiovascular disease, migraines, cancer, metabolic syndrome, autoimmune. Really want to dive into all this, but I need to mini episodes. Also looking at the effects of oxidative stress from your exercise training, what you can do about it. Looking at more research on oxidative stress, exercise-induced oxidative stress, the role of antioxidants in sport and exercise. And this is reactive species, exercise-induced oxidative stress and the effects. Some more on that. I think that was different. Anyways, I'm going to stop there, but hopefully this will help you learn more. So head to my blog, debbiepotts.net, and you can dive into this if you want to geek out. So let's chat next time. Thanks for listening to my rabbit hole.